My name's Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and here are the top international news highlights for the past 24 hours. Antonio Guterres calls for any resolution of the war in Ukraine to respect international law. Warns war still far from over at the opening of the Reuters Next Summit. In New York, the UN Secretary General stressed that peace proposals must uphold international legal norms while also condemning recent alleged war crimes in conflicts including Gaza and Venezuela. Region military operations. Rebecca Greenspan, I would hope I'm saying that right, emerges as a leading candidate to succeed Guterres as UN Secretary General. Potentially the first woman to hold post, Greenspan, currently head of UNCTAD, argues for major structural reforms at the UN if she wins, including adding permanent seats for Africa and Latin America to the UN Security Council. Asian markets lift ahead of U.S. rate cut expectations. Broader global markets also rise. A strong Japanese government bond auction helped calm global bond markets overnight. Asian equities rose while U.S. dollar and Treasury yields dipped as investors increasingly priced in a likely interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve. Amid global economic uncertainty and trade tech shifts, multilateralism and cooperation themes dominate Reuters Next Summit and EXT Summit discussions. The conference, drawing business and policy leaders from across sectors, is spotlighting rising challenges around AI, trade fragmentation, global inequality, and the future of international governance. Heightened tensions around Ukraine, EU and allied leaders weigh deeper consequences as Russian war looms. European powers, including Germany, are warning that choices made now over Ukraine will shape Europe's future. The diplomatic balancing acts involving China, Russia, and EU-US interests are under renewed scrutiny. Risk of prolonged war and international legal crisis. Guterres' warnings about Ukraine and broader conflict zones signal a possible protracted conflict environment with ongoing humanitarian, refugee flow, and security risks globally. Shifting global leadership dynamics at the UN if Greenspan becomes Secretary General. Expect pressure for structural reforms in global governance, which could upset long-standing power balances, especially in the Security Council. Global economic fragility, bond market jitters, shifting interest rate expectations, and economic uncertainty in Asia and the West suggests in global capital flows, which could ripple into trade and emerging market economies. Renewed emphasis on multilateralism and global cooperation, but under strain. Leaders and business executives convening at global forums like Reuters Next show that major challenges, AI disruption, inequality, environmental stress, require multilateral approaches, yet geopolitical rivalries may hamper consensus. Geopolitical volatility and realignment pressure as Ukraine war continues and global powers jockey for influence. Europe, Russia, and China. Trade, security, and diplomatic alliances remain unstable, raising risks of wider conflict or economic fallout. Micron Technology exits consumer memory business amid global chip shortage. The chip maker announced that it will exit its consumer memory unit and focus instead on specialized memory chips for AI data centers. The move reflects a broader global memory chip supply chain stress and has ripple effects for consumer electronics worldwide. Land Space's reusable rocket attempt fails. China's private sector for space is under pressure. China's private firm tried to launch and return a usable rocket, Zhuqiu-3, but failed the landing. The attempt still draws attention to the global race for reusable rocket technology, a space where competition is heating up among both public and private sectors. Oil prices firm as supply risk concerns rise after recent attacks on Russian infrastructure. Brent and WTI crude rose modestly as Western markets weighed potential supply disruptions following strikes on Russian oil pipelines. The move underscores ongoing volatility in global energy markets with implications for inflation, trade costs, and energy security. Bank of Japan signals likely rate hike in December. Global financial markets react. Sources say the BOJ is likely to raise its policy rate in December, a move that's already shifting bond market expectations internationally, affecting currencies, capital flows, and risk sentiment across Asia and beyond. State-backed memory chip shortage triggers wide global supply chain concerns. For electronics and AI hardware, industry-wide shortage of memory chips is now spilling into consumer and enterprise tech globally. The shortage threatens production of smartphones, servers, and AI data center infrastructure, adding a structural shock to technology supply chains worldwide. U.S. envoy meets with Putin on Ukraine peace plan. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and senior advisor Jared Kushner held a high-level 5-hour meeting in Moscow with Russian Vladimir Putin to discuss a revised Ukraine peace plan. The meeting comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told the Irish Parliament that Ukraine is closer to peace than ever before, urging the international community to seize the diplomatic moment. Russia and Sudan resume naval-based negotiations, military expansion. Russia and Sudan have reportedly resumed negotiations over a deal allowing Moscow to establish a naval logistics facility on Sudan's Red Sea coast. Under the reported terms, Sudan would receive Su-30 and Su-35 fighter jets and air defense systems in exchange for granting Russia a 25-year lease capable of hosting up to 4 warships and 300 personnel. This deal, if finalized, would secure Russia's first permanent military foothold in Africa on a critical global trade route. This is right by Qatar. UN adopts resolution on Israel and Golan Heights. The UN General Assembly adopted a resolution declaring that Israel's continued occupation and de facto annexation of the Syrian Golan Heights is illegal. The resolution demands that Israel withdraw from all the occupied Syrian Golan to the June 4th, 1967 line in implementation of relevant Security Council resolutions. Gaza ceasefire holds amid aid efforts and evacuations. Humanitarian, the fragile ceasefire in Gaza is generally holding, allowing UN aid teams to continue vital work. Relief supplies with a focus on food, water, and sanitation items continue to be offloaded at Gaza crossings. In total, over 10,600 Palestinians have been medically evacuated since the conflict began, with 235 exiting since the latest ceasefire was implemented in October. Honduran presidential election remains a technical tie. Latin America, the result of the Honduran presidential election remains undecided, with a technical tie declared between conservative candidates Nasri Asfura, who has Trump's backing, and Salvador Nasrallah. With only 57% of precincts tallied, the National Electoral Council CNE has slowed its count due to the razor-thin margin of just over 500 votes, increasing political tension and allegations of irregularities. UN mission in Iraq set to conclude after 22 years. The head of the UN Assistance Mission for Iraq, UNAMI, delivered his final briefing to the Security Council, marking the approaching end of the mission's 22-year mandate on December 31st. Briefing reflected on Iraq's hard-won gains following decades of conflict and instability. Global disarmament treaty faces greatest challenge. The UN's top disarmament official warned that the global ban on anti-personnel landmines is facing its most serious challenge since the adoption of the Ottawa Convention. The official warned that growing security concerns, particularly in Europe, cannot be used to justify undermining the treaty. Climate crisis fuels extreme weather in Asia and beyond. A new report from the World Meteorological Organization WMO released ahead of the UN climate conference COP30 confirms that 2025 is set to be one of the warmest years on record. Scientists warn that Asia is bearing the brunt of this change, warming nearly twice as fast as the global average, leading to increased severity and unpredictability of events like the recent deadly floods across Southeast Asia. Russia and China deepen strategic military ties. Defense and geopolitics. Leaked documents and new investigations expose the depth of the Russia-China defense cooperation, revealing that Beijing has quietly purchased Russian aircraft, armored vehicles, and ammunition since the start of the Ukraine conflict. The deal is negotiated by Chinese military officers and defense industry workers who made secret visits to Moscow, provide a crucial revenue stream to sanctioned Russian arms manufacturers. Simultaneously, the arms acquisitions are intended to enhance China's airborne forces as part of its military strengthening amid regional tensions, signaling a deepening strategic partnership aimed at countering Western influence. What are you doing, little kitty? What are you doing? Come here. OPEC Plus adopts a new production quota system, energy and global markets. The OPEC Plus group, OPEC and its allies, including Russia, agreed on a new mechanism to assess members' maximum sustainable production capacity, MSC. The goal is to maintain current production levels, pausing a previously scheduled output increase by 8 key numbers. I already talked about this earlier, I'm pretty sure, and I really don't want to go into detail on that one. WHO warns of acute threat from malaria drug resistance. This parasitic disease remains a major killer, claiming over 600,000 lives in 2024. Europe reaches a deal to phase out Russian gas imports. Energy security. The European Council reached an agreement with the European Parliament to enforce a phase-out of Russian gas imports by 2027. This policy finalizes a major step in the effort to end bloc's dependency on Russian energy, a dependency that created a significant economic and political vulnerability. Following the start of the Ukraine conflict, the decision aims to diversify Europe's energy mix and strengthen its long-term energy security. Canadian travelers shun U.S. for alternative destinations. Geopolitical consumer trend. A new study indicates that geopolitical instability and rising costs in the United States are causing a significant shift in Canadian travel preferences. Canadians are increasingly turning their backs on U.S. travel and opting for smarter budget-conscious alternatives like Mexico, the Caribbean, and destinations within Canada itself. This development has notable negative implications for U.S. tourism industry, particularly in border states. This concludes today's international news report. It is damn near 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go now. Bye.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America Fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.